hope that we actually end up with some understanding of this topic so that we can actually make practical use of it. I think for the most part, it just sounds something like it's very cool to be able to say, this is dualistic, man. You got to get into non-dual, man. The idea of this dual way of being or thinking or, well, as Emmett said, we hear this so much without much explanation that people just basically have their own ideas of what it's supposed to mean, and then they carry that idea in their mind of what it's supposed to mean. And sometimes we don't even examine so much as to when we use it, what do we mean when we say non-dual? What do we mean when we say duality? What are we talking about? What is it that we are understanding when we actually use the terms? And there are Buddhists who, and it's not a term that you could say that all Buddhists throughout the universe have a universal understanding, universal explanation as to what those terms are. There are even some Buddhists who say, what this non-dual nonsense, there's no such thing. What are you talking about? This mumbo jumbo. Okay, so I think it would be best for us to actually approach this from first an understanding of the word itself. What is it that what the word is trying to point to before we get into the philosophical additions to the words? Just like the word emptiness, for example. Empty is a very common word. There's nothing special about it. But when you add all those philosophical understandings on top of it, then it becomes something, oh my God, I have no idea what we're talking about now. I thought the glass was empty of water. Now I have no idea how to use that word anymore. I'm confused. Is the glass empty of water or what? Okay. So in the same way, also understand that the terms, the reason that they were used in the very beginning, because there was this primary understanding of those terms, and then in order to explain something, those words were used. And what is it that they were trying to explain? Okay. Right. And I really hope that especially tonight, after we go through this topic, that we don't end up with just more confusion as to what was he talking about? Okay. And the thing is, and as far as this is concerned, if there is no practical application to what we're talking about, something you can actually start using in your life, then it's meaningless. Okay. It's worthless. Okay. All right. So let's begin with a meditation. And I'm not going to guide a meditation. I'm simply going to guide you into the meditative state. You do whatever you want to do. Recite mantras, stay with the void, whatever that means for you. Do whatever you know, and I come back and I'll take you out. Okay. All right. So get yourself ready. And a very important part of every meditation is before you enter the meditation that you actually have a clear understanding as to what is it that you're going to do. You're going to enter meditation. What does that mean to you? Whatever that means to you, you don't have to worry about what's the sophisticated way of explaining it. What does it mean to you? Just bring that to mind, and that's what you're going to go into. And as you make that, you make a decision. Okay, I'm going into meditation. Just for general understanding, meditation is a way of accessing. What are we doing when we are meditating? We are accessing, and as we are accessing, we are also abiding and accessing what you might call subtle levels of consciousness. And there's a thing that we're going to come back to this at the end of somewhere in the talk, okay? And the more subtle the consciousness, or the more powerful the consciousness. And powerful in what sense? Powerful to bring about meaningful transformation, okay? So that's what we are accessing. And the different methods of meditation are different means of doing that, So, and when you access and abide in those subtle states, what do you want to do? You just want to become acquainted with them, or do you have an idea of motivation? There's something, a transformation that you want to take place. So you bring that to mind also. So those are the two very important preparations before going into meditation. So bring those to mind, and that in a sense communicating to your being, the entirety of your being, your body, your biological, physical being, your energetic, your mental being, that this is what you're going to do, and then let them do their thing. Let the body's intelligence guide you. It will give you advice, make adjustments here in the legs, make adjustments there in the torso, make sure you're comfortable, make sure there is stability, make sure the arms are even and relaxed. Arrange the hands in such a way that they remind you that you're meditating, you're not just sitting down. Whatever works for you, palms together, palms separate, up, down. Arrange your head and neck so there's no need to consciously hold the head and neck in place, that they are able to hold themselves without any conscious effort. Allow the mouth, teeth, tongue to rest in their natural places so the teeth are not clenched, the jaw is not too loose, the tip of the tongue is resting, touching slightly the back part of the upper teeth. The muscles of the face are relaxed, and your eyes are resting softly, whatever for you is resting for the eyes, whether closed completely, slightly opened, halfway opened, or looking straight ahead. Whatever feels like a resting for the eyes, you adopt that for your eyes. And go into that sense of relaxation that is beginning to take place. Relaxation in the body, relaxation in the mind, relaxation in the breath. So the entirety of your being is relaxing. And gently come to your breath. As you breathe in, simply know you are breathing in. As you breathe out, simply know you are breathing out. Without any intention to control the breath, without any intention to force the mind to focus. And as you just follow the breath in this way, and recall your intention to commit yourself to enter into that space called meditation. And be prepared that as soon as you make that commitment, as soon as you make that decision, and you make that action of commitment with the breath, that we will all take together, have the understanding and the joy of understanding that whatever is happening is part of your meditation. Some of it will be familiar outside of the meditative state, but don't consider it to be that as a sign that you're not meditating, but rather just something that's in the meditation that is familiar to outside of the meditation. And also be aware of those experiences that are specific to meditation, and be grateful, be joyful, rejoice witnessing them. The subtlety, the joys, sense of inner experiences, clarity, radiance. So let's make that commitment to enter the meditation state together with a full breath. Through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. And through the mouth, just let go. And as you let go, let go, let go, you're entering the meditative state. Let go, let go, let go, let go in the body, let go in the breath, let go in the mind. Keep letting go, keep letting go. As you keep letting go, notice the signs enhancing in the body, in the breath, and the mind. As you notice the signs appearing and enhancing, relax and rejoice. Leave the breath alone, just let the breath be in its natural rhythm and just stay, keep in that momentum of letting go, letting go, letting go. Gently raise your attention to the level of your eyebrows. And from that perspective, witness the breath. Not controlling it, just witnessing it. And from the perspective of the breath and from that place, acknowledge the signs and rejoice. Staying in that momentum with the breath, staying in that momentum from that perspective, the momentum of letting go, enhancing the calm, enhancing the pleasantness, enhancing the inner signs, which are now indirectly pointing to clarity and radiance. And understand that you're being guided, you're being protected. That's what's calling you from deep within and towards that source of guidance and protection, which is your own potential, you can say. Express a deep sense of respect, trust, and gratitude. Keeping that sort of joyful, touristic perspective, attitude towards the space, toward the experience. Keep letting go with every exhalation. Notice the enhancements in the signs and any new subtle experiences and rejoice. And that's it. And whatever else you want to do. Okay, get ready to come out of the meditation. Just bring your mind into that's the space of the meditation. If you were, whatever you were doing, bring your mind to just the space of the meditation. Bring your mind to the measure of peace, the measure of calm in the body, in the breath, and the mind. Bring awareness to the measure of pleasantness, joy in the body, in the breath, and the mind. And if there are inner sensations, whether they are inner sounds, anything pointing directly or indirectly to clarity and radiance, bring attention to them, bring awareness to them. And whatever measure of directive ability, focusing that is present, be aware of it. Noticing the presence of these signs, acknowledge that you're in a meditative state, no matter what measure they're in. Rejoice. Remember what you're about to do, what you're about to seek to understand, to share. And get ready to come out with a nice deep breath. Breathe in through the nose and through the mouth. Breathe out, feel it, hear it. And as you hear it, slowly let your mind go to your immediate surrounding through your sense of touch. Be aware of the temperature again. Be aware of the clothing on you again. Be aware of the sounds that you're hearing. Be aware of clouds, sunshine, colors, shapes. Okay. All right. So I hope some of you who wanted me to shut up when you were trying to meditate, I hope you appreciate it. Okay. Okay. Nobody told me to shut up while you're trying to meditate, but some people may have wanted that. Can I just do my own meditation? Can you just shut up? Sorry about this thing. Thank you very much for the gift of this. You know who you are. Okay, so let's dive into this thing and let's get ourselves completely confused. Or let's try to get ourselves unconfused. All right? Let's go, before we get into the metaphysical, the philosophical, let's just go to the mundane, okay? And that's a very good place to start, because the mundane, meaning what we are experiencing in our everyday experience. And it's because of these daily, everyday experiences, that's why in trying to understand them, in trying to relate with them in a way that is skillful, that's why we eventually find ourselves venturing into planes that we call the spiritual, the metaphysical, the fantastic. It's all, and they all have to do with helping us deal with what we are experiencing here what you might call the here and now. Okay, so any explanation, any realm that we go to, eventually it has to take us back to here, to our everyday experience, to the here and now. And it has to be something that lends to an experience that is also able to be experienced in the here and now. It's not something that's supposed to take us out into some sort of fantasy, forever fantasy, where we end up neglecting what's actually happening here and now. Okay. So let's begin with what seems to be very easier than the easier of the two, duality, dualism. Okay. So when you hear the word dualism, forget about all the philosophies that you've heard about. Forget about the even the confusions that you may have. Okay. So what is the immediate understanding of the term dual? Dual comes from two, means two. So just like you have two, so you can say this and that. Because you're able to say this and that, then you could say separate from each other. They're separate. This is not this, and this is not that. Okay, so that's how we understand duality, dualism, not two things. They're not. Oh, wait a minute. Forget about non-dual. We just, I'm jumping. We are in duality. So two things, separate things which are separate, a sense of here and there, a sense of me and other, a sense of this and that, right? And this is something that we experience. This is something that we experience. We experience also in a sense of here I am, the perceiving and then perceived. I am looking at the screen. So there's the screen and there's me. And forget about what's the screen, forget about what's the me, just that raw experience. That's what's there, that's what's present. So we have an understanding of dualism, and an understanding of what could be duality. So two separate things, that's a duality. And then you make it personal. Me, perceive, the sense of perceiving, and that which is perceived. So that's two things, the function of perceiving and then that which is perceived. So that's two other things, a bit more subtle than just two things, this laptop and this computer, or this wall and that wall. So two separate things. Now there's a sense of one of them that is sort of continuous, perceiving, and then things being perceived, and two separate things, right? And now, now we're going to jump a little bit to what might be philosophy. But before we go into philosophy, we have to go into what is that philosophy is trying to get us to. What is philosophy trying to get us to? So there is an experience that we have, and we want to understand it. There is an experience that we have. We want to either go deeper into it, for those of you who are lucky, and then, or you may be having an experience that you want to transcend because it's not so hot. It's not such a hot experience. It's not an experience by its nature, makes you want to continue to experience it, right? So we can sort of say now those are two things, right? One is a state or collection of experiences, which are experiences that you would say, I would like to go deeper into that. I would like to experience that. And a collection of experiences that they are already separate in the sense that they are different from each other, where you want to say, I don't want to continue to experience these experiences. I want to go beyond them. I want to transcend them. Okay, so now you have two different kinds of things. And the way we approach them, the things that we want to go deeper into, the things that we would like to either we have it, we want to go deeper into it, or we don't yet have it, we want to go into it. And those experiences that we have that we no longer want to continue to have. And that goes into a whole range of experiences that are, you could say, in the here and now. In the here and now, where you could say, I am sick, I don't want to be sick anymore, I want to transcend that state, I want to be healthy. Okay, these are two kinds of different kind of things. And the reason I'm using these very mundane, very down-to-earth experiences is to remember, even when we seem to approach that thing that it seems to be ultimate, that seems to be supernatural, the reason for even approaching it is for the purpose of dealing with things of the here and now. Okay? And there's a whole collection of things that we experience that you could say are things that we want to transcend, we want to overcome. And there are a range of things that we could say that we like when we experience them, that we'd like to expand more, and there are things that we've heard about, we have not quite yet experienced, that we would like one day to experience. Okay, and that's in the here and now. And when you look further into the experiences that are in the here and now, there are those experiences that once we have them, even though we were aspiring after them, even though they were enticing, we went after them. And after we finally caught up with them, we finally are now experiencing them, we find that they have something about them that is similar to the experiences that we were trying to get away from in the very beginning, at the start. Okay, so, and that's how we end up going from one experience to another experience to another experience, because we are in search of an experience, we found it, and then we were not looking for something to one day let go of, or something to one day no longer be supportive of our aspirations. We were looking for something that once we gain it, it will continue to it will continue to be something that we want to continue to experience. Okay? So no one goes into an experience with the hope that, oh, and one day I want this thing to disappoint me so I can move on. Nobody goes into an experience with that frame of mind. We may go into an experience with that frame of mind thinking that we are being sophisticated. we are sophisticated philosophers, and we understand the nature of reality. Because of this understanding of reality, we are expecting that we're going to be disappointed. So when we eventually become disappointed and trying to hide the fact that we're disappointed, we say, oh yeah, I was expecting that. But nobody goes, I don't care who you are or what you are, nobody goes into an experience consciously, willingly, knowing that this is going to disappoint me, but I'm gonna go into it so I can experience the disappointment. Right? Yes, we have those experiences, but nobody goes consciously go into them. All right. So after, then you can either, and that's something that almost everyone, not everyone, but there's a group of people who really want who claim to be want to do that. They want to be able to go into every experience that there is, as if, and then somehow we will be able to know, to have an experience. Oh yeah, this is the one experience where I find what you might call lasting satisfaction, or that experience where I don't experience disappointment. Among the experiences that are readily available to us, you could say, the experiences that you could say that provides by our direct experiences in the world, so to speak. And eventually, then we become sophisticated into the categories of the things that we want to experience, and the categories that we want to transcend. And now we sort of place them into two categories, and two categories of, so far there are experiences that, and there are two kinds of people, you could say, two camps. There's a camp of people who say, as long as you exist, you will never have an experience which is not something that you will one day be disappointed with. It doesn't matter how you exist, no matter where you go to exist, that is just inescapable. And that's what you might call suffering being inescapable. You cannot escape suffering. You cannot get from suffering. You cannot get away from, and don't go into philosophizing suffering. I'm not talking about some philosophy. I'm talking about exactly whatever the experience that you're having that you wish that you were not having it. Even if it's good for you in the end, okay? The very state of not being able to, the very present state of not wanting it while it's happening, that's suffering, okay? Whether it's a broken leg, or the ice cream wasn't as cold, or the ice cream was not the ice cream was not as sweet as it should have been. Okay, all that is suffering. So it doesn't have to be extreme or anything like that. So any experience that as you are having it, there's at the same time I wish I was not having this experience. And we're not going to go into the possible psychological things in there where people are in a state of denying. We're not talking about those kinds of things. Those are special cases, okay? All right, so, and this is now, we're slowly getting to the, into um, the subtle, the more subtle, the more philosophical approach, right? So we have to understand what is leading us there. It's not just hard, it's not just something that just drop into your existence uh, um, without any reason whatsoever. Okay, so there is the category of those experiences that you wish to transcend. You don't no longer wish to experience, and there are those categories of experiences that when you would experience it, if you were to experience it, you will not experience a sense of, oh, I don't want this to continue anymore. All right. And that's where these very strange ideas about it's not like someone actually visited heaven or anything like that, but there are people who say, oh, I don't want to go to heaven because it will be boring after a while. I mean, if there was such a thing as a heaven, by definition, it would be a place where whatever you will never, whatever you're experiencing, you want to experience. And you will never come to an experience where I don't want this experience anymore. Okay, so that will be, if there is such a thing, that will be that what a heaven would be. If it's not like heaven is, if there's such a thing, it would not be eating ice cream. Oh, ice cream tastes good, it makes me feel good. So let me eat a gallon of it. Or let me eat 2 gallons of it. So heaven would be if ice cream was heaven, or some that thing that we are looking for, that when we are experiencing it, the very nature of it, say we want this to continue. There is no sense within us where I don't want this to continue. If the ice cream was such, or whatever it is that we go after, right? Very, very ardently. If ice cream was heaven, you should be able to eat 20 gallons of it and never experience any bad side effect. Yeah, that would be what would make it heaven. Okay, now, and among those two categories of people that I mentioned, there are those who are convinced that there's no such experience that could be heavenly, that could be heaven-like. And there are those who fall into the category who go after. They believe that there is such an experience, that there is a possibility of experiencing such an experience. Okay. Now you have another duality, a more sophisticated duality, brought on by a need to relate to to experiences that we have. And now there's a category of duality where one of the dualities is not something that we have any direct experience with. It's the possibility of a heaven, the possibility of a liberated state, the possibility of a state where experiences are such that there is no part of it where you want it to, you don't want it anymore. It has become unsatisfactory. It has become stale. Okay. So among those two people, there are those who sort of fall in the middle. And I think a lot of people who want to be spiritual, who are, I would say, who are practical, because these two choices are in front of you. You find yourself sometimes wanting more and more to believe that there is no such thing. I will never ever experience, I will never bring myself to a place, to a state, to an experience where I am experiencing what you might call the heavenly, the experience that as it is taking place, there is never any wish or desire within me to no longer experience it, because it becomes an experience which has become unwantable. Okay, and we find ourselves sometimes accepting that there is that possibility, and then we engage in whatever it is that we wish to engage in so we can experience it. And there are times where we are more prone to accept that we will never be able to experience those kinds of things. The only kind of pleasant experience that we can experience is that, that 3 scoops of ice cream, and just know that only 3 scoops of ice cream is good enough. Don't try to go further because it's going to become pain. And there's not any experience in the entire universe, in the whole of existence, that is not different than that. Okay. And so we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now that becomes another 2 things, another duality. And the duality of 2 things doesn't stop, right? 2 things, 2 separate things. It doesn't stop. Where the one who's the perceiving, the act of perceiving, and then that thing being perceived, the 2 things doesn't stop. Now there is, and for the sake of just this, giving them a name, we will call one should I use the foreign words? Okay, I'll use the foreign words: samsara and nirvana. Okay, and mundane or supramundane. Okay, that's another way you can sort of put them together with the understanding of what each is supposed to represent, right? Exactly what are those experiences that by nature are such that you will never want, they will never become unwantable. There's a lot of dispute as to what those things may be, because it's very difficult to directly point to them. You can be placed on some sort of machine that is capable of scanning you, where you say, oh, the ice cream tastes good, and then they say, oh yeah, look at that. Those are signs that this person is having a good time. And as you continue to experience the ice cream, and you say, oh, the ice cream has become unwantable because now I'm starting to feel this and that. And then you say, oh yeah, look at those signs. That person is now having an unpleasant experience, an unwanted experience. Whether you continue to eat the ice cream, that's a different thing. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. All right. You might want to continue. You might want the ice cream to continue to please you, to continue to be good for you, to continue to make you happy. But because of the nature of the reality here of things that we experience, the ice cream is not able to do that for you. You might want that, but that's not what I'm describing as an experience that is part of it, that you say, I wish I was not experiencing this. Like, if, let's say you start having your stomach ache, for example. Like for me and cheese, oh my goodness. Cheese hates me, but I love cheese. And there are times when I say, forget this. I'm gonna have as much cheese as I want. Okay, I don't care if cheese doesn't like me. And I've had these experiences where I have a nice spread of all different kinds of cheese, soft cheese, hard cheese, aged cheese in front of me. And then I start to eat, oh my goodness, oh, how wonderful, how wonderful. As I'm eating it, I start to develop this headache. And I tell myself, I don't care about this headache. I just want to have this cheese. So I continue to eat my cheese. Even though there's a part of me, there's a headache, there's a part that says, that you could say there's this unwanted experience that is connected to with me having cheese, but there's also this experience of I'm enjoying the cheese. And eventually I continue, my headache becomes so much that I have to stop eating. And then of course the headache lasts a bit longer than just at the moment I stop, the headache lasts a bit longer. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You may want the experience to continue, but there's a part of it there's an unwantable aspect of it. Okay. So a cheese that doesn't give me headaches, that will be a heaven cheese. Okay. Then I can have an entire plate of it and never have any headaches. Okay. So exactly what cheese is that? Exactly what ice cream is that? That's what the philosophers are debating and having their arguments about. Okay, so whatever fancy way that they're putting it, understanding it the same way as cheese. Okay, understand the same way as ice cream. Okay, look at now we have an entire different perspective. Look what they're arguing about. They're arguing about whether cheese is heaven or not. They're arguing about whether ice cream is heaven or not. Now you can make fun of them, okay? But you understand what it's supposed to be, okay? Like for someone else, cheese never gives them a headache. They can continue to eat cheese until they fall asleep, until they can pick up another slice of cheese without not even have any problems. Okay, so those two categories, the worldly, the super worldly, heaven, earth, in the Buddhist term, samsara and nirvana. Okay, so samsara is whenever you're able to have, whenever in your experience, the experience is, part of it is, this is unwantable. And nirvana, whatever that is, whether it's cheese, whether it's crackers, whatever is there, okay? Whether it's, I don't know, whatever it is, okay? In the experiencing of it, there is never a sense of, I don't want this anymore, okay? Not that, and take that out of your mind, not that you spend an eternity eating cheese, okay? I don't want people to have that kind of wrong understanding, because just like people say, because when you're thinking about it in perspective of the mundane, wait a minute, in the mundane, eating cheese forever would be, oh my God, would not be so much fun anymore. Ooh, I don't want to go to heaven. Okay, that's not what it means, okay? All right, so that's another two things, duality. Now we have a slight understanding of what they mean by duality. There's from the very obvious to the sophisticated of samsara and nirvana being two things. Now we have to go into non-dual, okay? Before we go into non-dual, I have to say not every Buddhist tradition agrees, first of all, do they agree that there is such an experience that you can call non-dual? And those who agree with non-dual, they don't necessarily agree as to what it is, what is meant by non-dual. Okay. Now that you have those two things, this and that, let's begin with this and this and that. What would it mean that they are non-dual? And there are, you could say, presentations of non-dual that you could say are insults to your common sense. And don't accept those insults to your common sense. If they are insulting your common sense, then there's something, either a way that we are misunderstanding what it is presented, or what is being presented is just totally nonsense. Okay, so if I were to say these two are non-dual, how would you understand that? What does that mean? Remember, dual means two things, not separate. So for my two fingers to be non-dual, if we understand it, and that's the one that would be like insulting your common sense, it's really one finger. That'll be insulting your common sense. Because what are you seeing? You're seeing two fingers. Even in the question is sort of, how do you say? Even in the question itself is lying to itself. That's the way I can say it right now, but that's not exactly what I feel like I should be saying. What is the question saying? The question say, those two fingers, which is obvious, and then it says, those two fingers are not two fingers, they are one finger. They are one finger. The question itself is lying to itself. It begins by acknowledging that there are two fingers, that's why it's pointing to, and then it concludes saying this obvious thing is not obvious. It's not what it appears to be, it's one finger. Okay. So this way of understanding, in whatever sophisticated way, whatever of those things that we talked about, where there's the perceived, the act of perceiving, and that which is perceived, whether it is two fingers, whether it is samsara and nirvana, to conclude that non-duality means they are, or it's not two separate things, it's one thing. That's lying. That is in itself, in the very question, the very question is being dishonest to itself. It's pointing to its dishonesty. It's pointing to two fingers and it's saying it's one finger. Why are you pointing to two fingers in the first place? Why are you even mentioning that there are two fingers? Okay. So this way of understanding non-duality, whatever school holds it, whether it's Buddhist or not Buddhist, whether it's whatever it is, it's lying to what's obvious. It's insulting common sense. But there's a way you can say non-dual if you're talking about something, if you're referring to something else, that these two are fingers. They're not two separate things in the sense that one is the leg of a table and the other one is a finger. Okay. So in that sense, you can sort of understand not separate in being the same thing, in the category of things that they are. They're not separate. Okay. So that's one way of understanding non-duality. Very, 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 very mundane way of understanding it, which doesn't insult your common sense. Okay. And I can go from that me, my body, me, body of me, or body connected to me, we can say we are this non-dual in a sense that it's one continuum. It's one continuum. But yet in this very collection of things that we are calling it's one continuum, there's the left hand, which is not the right hand. There's the right hand, which is not the left hand. There's the left foot, which is, there's foot, there's hand, there are organs, there are cells, and all these are different things. But it doesn't, because there are different things in this continuum, it doesn't make us stop saying that it's one continuum. In the sense of that they are following, in the sense of, I have to say in the sense of many times, because I don't want to be in trouble for saying what I'm going to say. Okay. In the sense of following, in the sense of following a will, one will. Okay. Like, you go to work, all these cells end up in that place, end up in that activity, right? In that sense that they are non-dual. When someone is speaking of you, your body, your name, your personality, all these things, you could say they are non-dual. They're not separate things. They are part of one entity. They're part of one reality. They're part of what we call you. In that sense, when we say that, when we use non-duality in this way, and you understand that, and look at, as you understand this way of understanding this non-duality of me and my parts, right? When you understand that, you do not immediately remove or erase from existence those different parts, those different, the different separate things, the cells, the organs, the limbs, the name, and so forth, right? But you're able to say non-dual, and at the same time, you're able to understand that with non-dual doesn't mean somehow there's a blur with these different things, okay? So you can understand non-duality this way. And at the same time, you can say that the nature of this continuum, that they all share the same nature, just like the two fingers share the nature of the quality of being fingers. They are part of my hand. So in that sense that they share that nature, so they are non-dual in that they're not separate from that nature. Left finger, right finger, little finger, thumb, they're not separate from the nature, from the quality of being fingers. So they are, thumb and fingers are non-dual. So you understand that. So this body, these expressions, they are non-dual with what is presented as me. Okay. All right. Now we are starting to have a little bit more sophisticated understanding of non-dual, and it is with seeking. It is through the process of beginning to understand, beginning to have a direct experience that where we can say non-dual, and it is not fly in the face of what is common sense, that we now, in trying to find other ways, other expressions that we can, where when we say non-dual, we are, and it's still intact, that we go into the sophisticated, that we end up with the philosophical, but it still has to do with the here and now, the experiences that we are having here and now, okay? The experiences that we are having here now, the problems that we are having here and now, and how to address them. Now let's jump into, yes, samsara is those experiences that are brought on by specific causes, specific conditions. And the result that we have, that the result of these conditions, the result of these things coming together that give us that particular kind of experience that we call samsara, is a separate thing from those conditions, those causes that when we actually if we were one day to have an experience where as we are continuing to experience, continuing to have experiences, the experiences don't have those qualities where there's something about them that makes them unwantable. Okay, so that's a separate kind of a thing, just like my left leg is separate from a different thing than my right hand. Okay, but and here, this is where we have to be very careful, right? Now, nirvana and samsara are part of one reality. Now, wait a minute, okay? Now, don't think of this one reality as a third thing. Don't jump into that. Just like when you're saying me and the different parts of me, we are part of this one continuum. Understand it the same way, okay? Don't think of it there's this third thing and then samsara and nirvana are part of it, okay? But rather, there's something that allows for the experience of samsara, which is the same thing that allows for the experience of nirvana, because of the nature, what you might call, of experiencing, of experiences. The nature, and that's why it is called by one word, experience. Okay? It's not called something completely different. There is not something that is completely different. And if there is if it is something completely different, then you could say it's not an experience. Whatever that would be. Okay? So when there's experience, which you call samsaric, you can make it into an adjective, and there's experience that you might call nirvanic. Okay? They both share one thing. There's a word, and there's a word, that's the most obvious thing. There's a word that's in both of them, experience. Okay? then what is the nature of experience that allows for experience to sometimes be samsaric and for experience to sometimes be nirvanic? Okay? And because of this nature that allows for experience to have these two kinds of states, then you could say those two states are part of one continuum, just like you could say you and your body are part of one continuum. Nirvana and samsara are part of one continuum called experience. They're part of one experience called reality. And I am putting reality and experience to be one thing, one and the same thing, because I mean, what else is reality other than whatever it is that we're experiencing? Okay, if it's if it's something that is impossible to be experienced, I'm talking about impossible, not yet experienced. Okay, because some people might jump. There are some people who jump into that boat of, if it's not yet part of my experience, it doesn't exist. If until my feet are on Mars, Mars doesn't exist. That's silly. Doesn't make sense. It would be the same thing as saying, until my feet are in my neighbor's home doesn't exist. Might as well say the same thing. Until my feet are in the bathroom, the bathroom doesn't exist. Okay, that would be the same kind of thing. That's kind of that's not what this is. That's not what this is referring to. So possibility of experience, that is, even though I may never experience it, but because in its nature there's a possibility for me to experience it, then you could say it is at least, at most, relevant. If there's no way whatsoever, it doesn't matter what I do or what I don't do, I can never experience it, then it is irrelevant. I don't have to talk about whether it exists or doesn't exist. To talk about whether it exists or doesn't exist is wasting time, wasting energy, right? But whatever has the possibility of being experienced, that's what we're calling reality. That's what we're calling something that exists. If it has the possibility of being experienced, okay? So that's why I'm mixing those two terms without separating them, making them non-dual. Okay, all right, so because samsara and nirvana have this shared quality called experience, they're part of this continuum called experience. In that sense, we can apply non-duality to samsara and nirvana. And what is the applicable, what is to be applied here? The thing to be applied, if you understand this, is that one or the other is not something to expect coming from nowhere. That is, we are participating in our experience. If the samsaric experience that we are having is something that we have participated to bring about the conditions and causes to experience, and we are participating in holding whatever the causes and conditions are for us to continue to experience them. And because samsara and nirvana share that quality, because they're non-dual in that sense, so in the same way, we have to participate to experience something called nirvana. It can be something that just happens, just like nirvana, samsara didn't just happen. Okay, it didn't just happen without some sort of participation. And of course, as soon as we hear this, and then there is an absurd question. It's not absurd in the sense of insulting. I'm talking about the nature of the question itself. It's absurd. Not, again, I'm not in an insulting way. I'm not insulting anyone because we all have it instinctively. okay? I'm insulting myself too if it's an insult, but it's absurd in the sense that we, in our experience, have never experienced something that just popped into existence without anything prior to it. How can we, because of this is part of our experience, expect that to find something that a time, a space, forgetting that time and space are just conditions that we are participating in experiencing, somehow something outside of that, time outside, something outside of time, outside of space, somehow, no, that's not what I'm saying. Let me move it. So somehow that there was an absolute time and absolute space where we could say, oh, that's when my samsaric existence started. And the question of finding the time and the space is absurd. It's absurd in the sense that our very experience tells us there is no such thing. So looking for time and the space when samsaric existence started is like the characters in a movie looking for the director. Wait a minute, let me go back. I'm talking about the movie is finished. And now you're looking at the movie being projected on the screen. The characters, the images in that somehow would be able to find out who is projecting them. Their very nature is projected. Whatever they're experiencing is projected. So they will not be able to even fathom a non-projected reality, because that's what they are, projected. So time and space are in the same way. That when we are looking for what was it, the starting point of samsara, the starting point is we are like the projected, we're seeking to have an experience that, and where our nature is projected to seeking to have a non-projected experience. So you could say the question is irrelevant. The question is irrelevant because time and space are part of our reality. You know, looking for an absolute time and an absolute space is looking for something, its very nature has nothing to do with what we're looking for. So, and I'll soften it, even though this is not the topic of what I'm supposed to be talking about. I'll soften this by saying, infinite past, infinite future are all part of our conceptual framing. Having a starting point, having infinity, that's another kind of duality, another kind of two. And in our experience, we observe, like, relatively speaking, we started this at, well, we were supposed to start at 7:30, but I was a bit late. Relatively speaking, we started at a little bit after 7:30. So that's relative. It doesn't mean that before this time didn't exist, right? So we experience what you might call a relative time in terms of starting point. And when we are looking at time, we see, oh, time before. It's the nature of time that there's always a time before. To look for time which had no time before it that's what I'm referring to as absurd. So it helps us to, and this is to help you come to a state of ease, because a lot of people are uneasy with infinite. Okay, this is to help you understand that. Okay, and I will give you a kind of a mind-only kind of way of understanding it, so it will be easy to understand. Okay. So just like specific time is relative, infinite time is also relative. Relative in the sense of let's say, okay, let's say for example, that as we look back in time, looking for the first time, the first starting point, and even the Big Bang is not even the starting point again, because what was before the Big Bang? There was something that caused the Big Bang. Never mind. Okay, so there was a time before that with the Big Bang. Okay, never mind. The thing is, in the very act of looking, you could say, and this is where the mind-only kind of thing sort of comes to the rescue, but only as a way to help us not become all caught up, okay, and messed up and confused. As the mind is looking back, the mind is creating time. Uh-oh. All right. So since our experience, if indeed our mind plays a big role in experiencing whatever it is that we're experiencing, so time is something that we experience, and mind plays a part of it. So as we keep going back, even if that is true, a way of understanding infinity, you could say even that the mind is participating in creating the experience of infinity. Okay, so there's relative starting time and we can have a sense of experience of infinity. Okay, they are non-dual in the sense that they are part of one continuum experience. All right, now it's going to get sophisticated, meaning I'm about to say things that are very confusing, and not just for you, but also for myself. Okay. All right, everybody should be at ease now. Yeah, I follow. I hope everybody's following, and we are now we can jump off, get into the realm of not supposed to be abstract, but the philosophical, the metaphysical. We have to sort of step out now, but just as a perspective to be able to understand our here and now. Okay, it's all about the perspective of understanding our here and now. Just like when I said about what does it mean in this understanding of the non-duality of nirvana and samsara, when you understand that it's a continuum of experience. And that also tells you that your nirvana may not be my nirvana, my samsara may not be your samsara, and it's perfectly valid. And will there be a time when I fully understand your nirvana, when I fully understand your samsara? I can have such an experience where I can tell myself, yeah, that I fully understand your samsara, and yet it still be my experience. Okay, and I told you it's going to get messy and confusing. Okay, so it's starting to already. I'm already confusing myself. Okay, so and what is that? And I'm calling that one continuum experience. To throw it into the realm of philosophy, in the Madhyamaka, it's Mahayana, it's emptiness. Nirvana is empty, samsara is empty. And what it's pointing to by saying it's empty It's not to become confused, but rather they're all just part of the continuum that we call experience. They share that one reality. That is, we can participate. We can relate with them. They are relatable. We can connect with them. They can connect with us. That's that's what, in one way of understanding emptiness. Okay, that they are both empty. So I'm not going to go into empty too much because we have too many misunderstandings, too many different ideas about what's that supposed to be anyway. So we just understand that. Okay. All right. So we have this nature, experience, the nature in the sense of, remember the nature of experience, right? The nature of experience that is relatable, make possible, connecting-able, interdepending-able, okay? That's what you might call the nature, the quality of experience. And at the same time, in every experience, there is an awareness of experience. There's an awareness of experience. And this is where it's going to get messed up, messed uply complicated. When we talk about awareness of the experience. And the way we understand this, so experience, awareness of experience, two different things, right? Two different things. We just said it. We just said two different things. They are part of the same continuum. Whenever there is an experience, there's awareness at some level or some degree or another. In that sense, you can say that they are non-dual. Just like wherever there's a sense of me, there are these parts of me. They're always present together. That the non-duality of experience and awareness of experience becomes very sophisticated and becomes quite confusing when you try to grasp it. And a lot of texts, even though there are some Buddhist schools who would say that, sorry, I have to answer this. Even though there are those in the school who say that non-dual, the idea of non-dual doesn't exist. What they're referring to is as if someone is giving the non-dual fly in your face, disrespecting your common sense kind of thing, that samsara and nirvana are one and the same thing. So those who say nirvana and samsara are non-dual, they're not saying they're one and the same thing. They're saying they share this continuum. Because, and what's the continuum? Whatever it is, this thing that we call the person, through that one continuum of that person, we say, John is in samsara, now John is in nirvana. So that's that one common thread. That's what makes samsara and nirvana non-dual. They're just experiences that John is going through, that Janet is going through, okay? That Elizabeth is going through, okay? So in that sense, those two are non-dual, okay? Non-dual in that they're not things that completely not connected at all, okay? Just like these two fingers are connected to the hand, right? Arising out of capacity to have experience. And remember, the reason for understanding that they're non-dual is to understand that the person is responsible. The person has responsibility for which experience to have. In that sense, non-dual. They're not in two separate persons. They're in one person. In that sense, non-dual. Okay, and all this is getting you ready for the sophisticated, supposedly sophisticated. So now you have an understanding of nirvana, one understanding of nirvana and samsara, where you can apply non-dual to them and say, oh yeah, I get that. And I can see the practical applications of this non-dual explanation. Okay. Now we're going to go more into what makes it possible. Going into the what makes it possible. That means we are, even though it appears to be completely abstract, it's going to appear to be completely abstract. But what we are going into what is the truly applicable aspect of non-duality. Okay? That's what you have to understand. Now we are going into what makes it possible. And when we go into what makes it possible, and we are looking at non-duality, on the path, when there is the simultaneous, immediate experience of two, perceiving and then the thing perceived. Simultaneously with that, there is a disconnect to the fact that there is a common nature to these two things, to this appearance of these two things. It's not to deny that there are these two things, but to understand that there is something that explains one. There's a thing that there's what do I call it? There's a nature. There's something that makes these two possible, and this thing that makes these two possible, there's something about it that those two share. Okay. And now, going deeper into that thing that those two share, that thing that makes it possible. In talking about the nature, right? There is, remember, simultaneously, because of habit of seeing two, we make two absolute. Not understanding that two share an experience, share a nature that makes the appearance of two possible. Okay, we forget that. That's what in Buddhism is referring to as, and not in Buddhism, but in many places, in Buddhism also. So believing those two things to be completely separate, not having any interconnection to one another. And this happens simultaneously as soon as there is this gross mind perceiving and the thing that's being perceived. And because we don't see what is the nature that this object over there share with this object over here, all we see are the differences. Yes, the differences are to be honored, but they're not absolutely different, separate things. Okay. But the nature of samsaric experience is such that we buy into the appearance of two and we make it an absolute, saying that absolutely there are two. That is dishonest. It is dishonest because we did not thoroughly examine either one for us to make that conclusion. This is just an appearance at first, and then we're not going deeper into what we are experiencing, and we are making the conclusion appearing to be completely two different things. They're absolutely completely two different things, no connection whatsoever. Okay? Which would mean there's nothing you can do to this, there's nothing you can do to that. That's what it would mean, two absolutely separate things. Separate in a sense of this and that being absolutely separate, separate in a sense of me and that thing being absolutely separate, separate in a sense of absolutely separate now, okay? Not relatively separate, absolutely separate. And trying to explain this, and I seem to be bringing back the idea that they're one and the same thing. That's not what I'm saying. They're not one and the same thing, okay? But there is a nature that they share that makes them possible to appear as two different things, okay? So this habit of that just spontaneously takes place. Oh, that's absolutely separate. That's absolutely there. This is absolutely here. That's having dualistic perception. That's having dualistic view. Nirvana and samsara are completely separate things. There's nothing connected to them. To hold this dualistic view in this way, the conclusion should be there's nothing in this continuum that can have an experience of nirvana. There's nothing in this continuum of a nirvana that is connected to a continuum of samsara. That's what it would absolutely mean. And when we hold this dualistic perspective, this dualistic view, this dualistic conclusion, without knowing it, even if we are making effort towards nirvana, we are blocking ourselves. Because we are saying, at the same time, I want this, at the same time, we say it's impossible for me to get there. Because it's other. It's absolute other. It's absolute over there. There's no connection. There's no interrelating that can take place. That's what we are absolutely doing. And no wonder we find ourselves stumbling and not making progress, because we're holding two completely opposite conclusions in our mind. I want that, but there's absolutely no way I can get there. And we can experience this here in the here and now with the relative mundane things. I want that position, but there's absolutely no way I can have that position. And because I'm creating this barrier between me and that, then whatever the interconnections that exist, I'm veiling myself from being able to see them, so I can see myself connected to that eventually, right? So that's what we are doing unconsciously when we are having dualistic vision, dualistic ideas, dualistic views, okay? That's what it means by having dualistic views. And then this dualistic view is equal to, within Buddhism, is equal to what we refer to at times ignorance. Okay. So ignorance and dualistic view are, in the sense, speaking about the same thing. Now, when you start to understand this, starting to have an understanding, start to have an appreciation about, simultaneously with my experience of seeing two things, there is this innate grasping, this innate conclusion about absolute two-ness. I want to be able to, sincerely, I want to be able to put a stop to this. And in wanting to be able to put a stop to this, that's when we draw all those different kinds of fly in your face kind of conclusion about what non-duality is supposed to be. Okay. So as we sincerely, in the very experience that we are having, yes, there is the obvious first level experience. We don't deny it. We don't say it doesn't exist. We just have a curiosity to go more in depth into the very experience that we are having. And when we have this sincere wish to go deeper into the experience that we are having, then you could say this hard, dualistic holding, grasping, we start to loosen it. And as we start to loosen this, then we start to see connections. As we start to see connection, eventually we arrive at a point how perceiving and the thing being perceived, how they are interconnected, how they are playing on each other. Not that one is the master of the other, but rather how they are interbeing. That's a beautiful term that I forgot who came up with it. How they are interbeing, how they are participating in each other's beingness. Okay? And it's not something where we will find an absolute point where this is where it started. We're not going to find that. Remember, that such thing doesn't exist because of the nature of experience itself, the nature of reality itself. It's endless, endless interconnection, endless interbeingness, right? So as we begin to break down on dualistic grasping, we start to gradually also begin to experience non-dual experience. We start to see connection. As soon as we begin to see connection that is heartfelt, that is a kind of non-dualistic, non-dual perspective. And because of the nature of things of not being absolutely what they appear to be, not that they are not what they are appearing to be, but they're not in an absolute way being what they are to be. And at the first, completely separate things without any connection. Then that means what we are experiencing in the duality is just one dimension of experience. Everything is multidimensional. You get dimensions of connections, okay, to put it that way. Then eventually, the perceiving activity and the perceived arrive at a point where perceiving something and something being perceived, that kind of experience goes away. When that kind of experience goes away, one is now, you could say, completely absorbed in the fundamental reality of complete interconnection. Where in this complete interconnection, there is no more the thing being perceived and the thing perceiving it, and the mechanism of perceiving it. Appearing in experience, but rather there's just the experience of the perceived, which is no longer being experienced as perceiver, perceiving, perceived. And yogis can have this experience. A lot of yogis have this experience. And this is called a non-dual experience. And this non-dual experience is an experience where the mechanism of perceiving or the activity of perceiving and the thing being perceived are no longer part of experience. In another way, and I'm going to put it in a way that's usually more philosophical, and the reason I'm saying that is to really get a grasp of it, to get an understanding of it, is what they refer to as subject and object. For as long as subject and object have a sense of, because of habit, of, well, there's object, there's subject, there's me, there's the thing being perceived, and they, because of habit, appear to be absolutely separate. And just by sincerely going into the experience of what's taking place. What is the experience taking place? There's subject experiencing object. That's the experience taking place, subject experiencing object. And eventually, this two-ness, because they're not absolute, the interconnection is experienced more and more and more, more and more, where there becomes no, it's like when you look at a web from afar, it's just web. You don't see, you know, this string and that string, just web. So in the same way, subject and object are sort of lost in each other. There's what you might call the capacity to make a distinction is no longer there. Being able to make a distinction is part of experience, okay? And if I'm saying part of experience, that means it can be experience, it can also not be experience. And experiencing one doesn't negate the experience of the other. So because yogis, because they're sincerely trying to understand what they are experiencing, and through this sincere wanting to experiencing, to understand and experience deeper and deeper, they eventually arrive at a level of experience where subject and object no longer function. There's no such thing anymore that is appearing in experience. And because of that, some yogis make the conclusion this is the absolute nature of things, in the sense of everything is really one thing. Exactly what I just said. The conclusion that is drawn from that, everything, listen to the word, everything is really one thing. See how that very sentence makes no sense? But because of that experience, they can't deny the experience where there was obvious an experience where there was no longer a subject witnessing an object, it was just pure experience. And because they had to dig deep to get to that experience, and because what they were looking for was a kind of experience that could explain things, they come out of the experience saying everything is one thing. That was just a dimension of experience. It's not the absolute nature of things. It's not that everything is one thing, but rather everything is an experience. One thing is an experience. One is not more valuable than the other. One is not more real than the other. They're just aspects of experience. Okay. And now, why should yogis seek this non-dual experience? The reason for yogis to seek this non-dual experience is because of the habit that is spontaneous, that is immediate. Things are absolutely two. Things are absolutely different. There is no interconnection. I don't see it. It's not obvious to me. Because it's not obvious to us, so we have the habit of saying it's not obvious. It doesn't exist. But when we have an experience that we cannot deny, just like we have an experience, those two things are separate and we can deny it. And we have an experience, whoa, where did subject and object go? And you can't deny that, then that helps you let go of the habit of acting, behaving in a world that things are completely separate, just because they appear that way. Okay. Yes, Janet and John are Janet and John on the first appearance of it. And you can have an experience where Janet and John are no longer Janet and John, is another experience. Okay. Where you see the interconnection of Janet and John. Okay. But it doesn't mean you have found the real Janet and you have found the real John. You simply are experiencing a dimension of Janet and John that was not with the other experience of Janet and John. And this is what Nagarjuna said, hey, don't make a wrong view out of my Madhyamika. Don't make what I'm saying to be some sort of absolute, okay? So your experiences are valid, but they're not absolute. There are different dimensions of experiencing things. And the reason for, so you could say, if someone is stuck in oneness, and I'm saying stuck on purpose, they have no way of relating to everything because they're stuck in oneness. And that person becomes impractical. That person will not be able to help you solve your problem, even when they're stuck in oneness, because they don't see problems. And that is a kind of a escape that we wish to sometimes have. When we have a problem, we want to arrive at this non-dual understanding where everything is non-dual, there's no problem. And the problem is smacking you in the face. Okay, now that's denial. Okay. And remember, problem is relative. Problem for you, not problem for them. But just because problem for you, not problem for them, it shouldn't be a problem. It's not problem for you. It's problem for you because it's a problem for you. Oh my God, I have $1 trillion. What a problem. Don't tell me it's not a problem just because you don't have $1 trillion. Okay. So just when you thought I get to the most sophisticated part, but here I am getting to the most sophisticated part. This is what I'm going to make you get lost. Okay. All right. So we get into one little level of sophistication of subject and object, experiencing a different dimension of experience where subject and object no longer exists. Well, not no longer exists, but it's no longer being, it's not experience. It's not part of the experience. Okay. It's no longer perceiving something. It's just experience, perception, you could say. Okay. Now, and remember, this is all this supposedly abstract, sophisticated thing is about exactly what is going on in your life. Is going deep into it. Okay? And here it is. Eventually, you arrive at a non-duality, not just subject and object are part of the one continuum, that interconnectedness. The nature that allows experience to be what it is, the nature that allows experience to be what it is, where experience can be experience of nirvana or experience of samsara. Is inseparable from experience. The nature that allows for experience to be able to have experience of nirvana, experience of samsara. That nature is inseparable with experience. Okay. And this is a kind of non-duality. You could say that when people talk about one thing, where they could say, okay, in this case, we can make an exception. Okay, we can make an exception. It's just like me and these things of mine, they're part of the one continuum of me, right? So experience and that which allows for experience to have its experiences are non-dual. So like wherever one goes, the other one goes, just like wherever you go, your body and your mind goes. Okay? And from this opens up what you might call a whole can of worms. You thought we just reached the bottom of the can, but we actually find ourselves entering into a completely different dimension of possibilities. And in this experience of, in this, if you're able to have awareness as sincerely as you have it here, oh, that's this, that's that. If you can have that awareness at that level of the nature of experience and experience in itself. Remember, experience, don't think of experience as, you know, something over there and then the nature of experience over there, all right? And don't think of experience as something divorced from whatever it is that you are experiencing. Don't think of it that way, okay? Think of experience the same way, in the immediate way that it hits you when you think of experience. That's what I'm referring to. And I'm referring to the nature of that which allows it to be what it is. It's one and the same. There are those two appearing things that we can conceptually talk about as if they're two different things. They're one and the same. They're non-dual. And this is the ultimate non-dual, where the nature of one thing is we can make an allowance for that. And the reason and the whole universe that it makes it possible to understand, then we come out of that, then we can make you can make a lot of statements from that perspective that just makes no sense whatsoever. But you're allowed to make those statements if you're coming from that perspective. Okay? You can make such statements as, I don't have to get away from samsara. I don't have to go to nirvana. And it seems absurd. It is absurd, but it makes sense only when you're coming through that understanding. There's no samsara to come out of, and there's no nirvana to go to. And I'll leave it at that. I'll leave you with some confusion. Okay. All right. So, oh yeah, somebody's made that statement. All right. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to be able to say so much about this topic. I thought it was going to be like a 15-minute talk, because what else I can say? But I was able to stretch it up to the point where you only have 3 minutes left. So, anyone has anything they want to say, ask? Thank you. Okay, if my last statement left you dumbfounded, then you. Okay. Understand this, what you call it, the uh, rabbit hole that I left you in. It's not fantasy land, okay? It is the underbelly of your experiences. It is understanding that will help you be able to deal with your actual here and now experience. Okay. Okay. All right. I guess I'll, since there are no questions, no questions, right? Okay. All right. So let's do a closing meditation. The and I did say something about the meditation that's relevant to the topic. So when you are meditating, you're seeking non-dual experience to undermine and undo the grasping to dualistic grasping, so that you live your existence not under the sway, less and less under the sway of dualism. But don't make non-dualism, at least what you might call the relative non-dualism, to be some sort of absolute. Okay, but but the very last non-dual, where the nature and experience are one and the same, that's okay. All right. All right. So let's do our meditation where we go into a different kind of non-dualism. Okay. All right. So bring to mind the experience of meditation, and as vividly as you can recall, try to go into that experience. So there's no me looking at the experience, but me experiencing it. Just by looking at it and letting yourself drop, just keep going into it, into the memory of it, until there is a re-experiencing it in the body, the calm, the pleasantness, in the breath, the calm, the pleasantness, in the mind, the calm, the pleasantness, the vividness, the clarity, the collecting of attention. And to stabilize this, to get into it, let's take a deep breath, a commitment breath, to go into it through the nose, gently, fully breathe in, through the mouth, let go, breathe out. And as you let go, let go, let go, let go in the breath, let go in the body, let go in the mind, let go, feel that momentum of letting go, stay in that momentum of letting go, notice the calm becoming calmer, rejoice, notice the pleasantness becoming more pleasant, rejoice. In the body, in the breath, in the mind, leave the breath alone, let the breath return to its own rhythm, just stay with that momentum. And as you stay with that momentum, the immediate sense of us, all of us here doing this together, just think of that word us, and whatever sense of that appears to you, go into it. And to help sort of strengthen that sense, imagine, feel all of us sitting in a circle together. And keep reminding yourself, us, us, us. And in the very center, in the very midst of our circle, there is a manifestation of this us, a bright light. In its presence, we feel home, at home. We feel accepted. We feel complete. And there's this light connecting our heart to it. And through that light, we are empowering it by our individuality, adding to the strength, the uniqueness of us. And it is energizing us. It's an exchange because of us, because of our individuality. We make the us. Because of the us, there's the individuality. And this bright presence in our center begins to expand. As it expands, it transforms, brings into its brightness everything that it expands into, the space, the things in the space, until each one of us is absorbed into that us, into that bright us. And we have now a deep sense of us. And it continues to expand. And as it expands, the us, the sense of us is no longer just those of us in the circle, but everything in the space, both organic and inorganic. And it continues to expand, including not only everything in our space, but also it begins to include other spaces and everyone and everything in those other spaces. It continues to expand. Everyone in your neighborhood, everything in your neighborhood, the grass, the trees, the skies, the space, it's us. Just like your hands and feet and eyes is us, your personal individual us. So all these trees, all these grass and all these places, all these people, they are us. And they continue to expand until it becomes inseparable with your state, your department, your province, until your entire nation, your entire continent, and the entire earth. And if you want to continue, let it continue, the entire solar system, the entire universe, whatever feels real to you that you can feel, you can just stay with the earth. And that sense of us, just like my legs, my hands are me and us, and yet there's a hand, there's feet, there's water, oceans, rivers, it's us. The same way hands want to protect feet, feet want to protect hands. So we see river as us to be protected, ocean to be protected, to be cared for, the trees, the grass, the sky. Everyone is us. Every being is us. And let yourself get lost in that. The subject perceiving us. And if you allowed it, there was fractions of moments where only when you came out of it, you will realize, it was just us, not me and them, but us. So keep going back to that fraction of a moment of an experience. Keep remembering it if you can only remember it. And keeping that sense of it, and see now this light being, which is us, which is our collective us, shrinking back from the edge of the universe or from the edge of the earth, going back, going back, going back until it returns to the very center of our circle. And whatever it has touched and left, it left the impression of us. The citizens of the nation are us. All the beings on the planet are us. We are still left with that. In the same spontaneous way, we want the left hand to take care of the feet. So we feel the same to take care of whoever, whatever. And now that glowing light in our center dissolves itself by splitting itself into the number of the individuals that are in a circle, and becomes inseparable with each one of us. And because of that, we feel in our individuality, we are all of us. So by sincerely taking care of this individuality, we take care of all of us. By taking care of all of us, we take care of the individuality. And get ready to come out of the meditation. At first, just feel what you might call the signature of your meditation. It's meritorious power, energy, or what we have done, what we have understood, what we are planning to do because of that, the transformation that we have initiated and will consciously participate in. Just that intention is power. And think of something that is of concern to you, whatever it may be, for yourself, your future self, someone you know, a group of people you know, a place somewhere, whatever that you have a sincere concern about. Dedicate this to help you address that concern. Gyodi Kyokun Sunam Yeshe Zogzoshen Sunam Yeshe Lechong Damba Kunyi Doba Shu. Get ready to arise from the meditation. Make that intention to arise, just like you make the intention to go into it. And with that, make the commitment with the breath. This time, you breathe in and breathe out with the intention to come out. And feel it, hear it. Through the nose, take a nice deep breath. Through the mouth, breathe out. And joyfully reconnect with your immediate surroundings, reconnect with your sense of touch. Feel the temperature again, feel the clothing on you, reconnect with your sense of hearing, reconnect with your sense of sight, seeing colors, seeing shapes, seeing shadows and lights, and seeing beautiful faces. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Phuntsok. Yeah, that was a wild ride. I just posted the links if you are able to support home. It's always grateful. If you, like me, want to go through this class and listen to it again, they are recorded and it will be up on the Patreon page at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So please feel free. It's great to see you. Thank you, Phuntsok.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.